Good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:17 Eastern Time. Quick note. Date and rate of Earth's most extreme extinction. Pinpointed results stem from largest ever examination of fossil marine species. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. It is well known that Earth's most severe mass extinction occurred about 250 million years ago. What's not well known is the specific time when the extinctions occurred. A team of researchers from North America and China have published a paper in Science which explicitly provides the date and rate of extinction. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:18 Eastern Time. Quick note. Our information narrows down the possibilities of what triggered the massive extinction, and any potential kill mechanism must coincide with this time. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:19 Eastern Time. Quick note. About 95% of marine life and 70% of terrestrial life became extinct during what is known as the end Permian, a time when continents were all one land mass called Pangaea. The environment ranged from desert to lush forest. Four-limb vertebrates were becoming diverse, and among them were primitive amphibians, reptiles, and a group that would one day include mammals. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:20 Eastern Time. Quick note. Through the analysis of various types of dating techniques on well-preserved sedimentary sections from South China to Tibet, researchers determined the mass extinction peaked about 252.28 million years ago and lasted less than 200,000 years, with most of the extinction lasting about 20,000 years. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:23 Eastern Time. Quick note. These dates are important as it will allow us to understand the physical and biological changes that took place. We do not discuss modern climate change, but obviously global warming is a biodiversity concern today. The geological record tells us that change happens all the time, and from this great extinction life did it recover. There is ongoing debate over whether the death of both marine and terrestrial life coincided, as well as over kill mechanisms which may include rapid global warming, hypercapnia, a condition where there is too much CO2 in the bloodstream, continental aridity, and massive wildfires. The conclusion of this study says extinctions of most marine and terrestrial life took place at the same time, and the trigger, as suggested by these researchers and others, was the massive release of CO2 from volcanic flows known as the Siberia Traps, now found in northern Russia. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:27 Eastern Time. Quick note. New smart material could help tap medical potential of tissue-penetrating light. Science Daily, November 16, 2011. Scientists are reporting development and successful initial testing of the first practical smart material that may supply the missing link in efforts to use in medicine a form of light that can penetrate 4 inches into the human body. Their report on the new polymer or plastic-like material, which has potential for use in diagnosing disease and engineer new human tissue in the lab, appears in the ACS Journal of Macromolecules. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:29 Eastern Time. Quick note. That near-infrared NIR light, which is just beyond what human can see, penetrates through the skin and almost 4 inches into the body, with great potential for diagnosing and treating disease. Low-power NIR does not damage body tissues as it passes. Missing, however, are materials that respond effectively to low-power NIR. Plastics that disintegrate when hit with NIR, for instance, could be filled with anti-cancer medicine injected into tumors and release the medicine when hit with NIR. Current NIR responsive smart materials require high-power NIR light, which could damage cells and tissues. That's why the team began research on development of a new smart polymer that responds to low-power NIR light. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:31 Eastern Time. Quick note. Hit with low-power NIR, their new material breaks apart into small pieces that seem to be non-toxic to surrounding tissue. The research envisioned, for instance, putting the polymer in an implantable hydrogel, which is a water-containing flexible material used for tissue engineering and drug delivery. A hydrogel with the new polymer could release medications or imaging agents when hit with NIR. To the best of our knowledge, this is the first example of a polymeric material capable of disassembly into small molecules in response to harmless level of irradiation. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:40 Eastern Time. Quick note. Birth of famous black hole, long-standing mysteries about Object called Cygnus X1 unraveled. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. For the first time, astronomers have produced a complete description of a black hole, a concentration of mass so dense that not even light can escape its powerful gravitational pull. Their precise measurements have allowed them to reconstruct the history of the object from its birth some 6 million years ago. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 6:41 Eastern Time. Quick note. Using several telescopes, both ground-based and in orbit, the scientists unraveled long-standing mysteries about the object called Cygnus X1, a famous binary star system discovered to be strongly emitting X-rays nearly a half-century ago. The system consists of a black hole and a companion star from which the black hole is drawing material. The scientists' efforts yielded the most accurate measurements ever of the black hole's mass and spin rate. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:42 Eastern Time. Quick note. Because no other information can escape from a black hole, knowing its mass, spin, and electrical charge gives a complete description of it. The charge of this black hole is nearly zero, so measuring its mass and spin make our description complete. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:46 Eastern Time. Quick note. Though Cygnus X1 has been studied intensively since its discovery, previous attempts to measure its mass and spin suffered from lack of precise measurement of its distance from Earth. A continent-wide radio telescope system to make a direct trigonometric measurement of the distance. Their VLBA observations provide a distance of 60 to 70 light years, while previous estimates had ranged from 58,000 to 78,000 light years. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:48 Eastern Time. Quick note. I'm with the new precise distance measurement. Scientists using Condor X-ray Observatory, the Rossby X-ray Timing Explorer, the Advanced Satellite for Cosmology, Astrophysics, visible light observations made over more than 2 decades, calculated that the black hole in Cygnus X1 is nearly 15 times more massive than our Sun and is spinning more than 800 times per second. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:50 Eastern Time. Quick note. This new information gives us strong clues about how the black hole was born, what it weighed, and how fast it was spinning. Getting a good measurement of the distance was crucial. We now know that Cygnus X1 is one of the most massive stellar black holes in the Milky Way. It is spinning as fast as any black hole we've ever seen. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:51 Eastern Time. Quick note. In addition to measuring the distance, the VLBA observations made during 2009 and 2010 also measured Cygnus X1's movement through our galaxy. That movement, the scientists said, is too slow for the black hole to have been produced by a supernova explosion. Such an explosion would have given the object a kick to a much higher speed. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 16:51 Eastern Time. Quick note. There are suggestions that this black hole could have been formed without a supernova explosion, and our results support those suggestions. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 4:52 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Light created from a vacuum, Casimir effect, observed in superconducting circuit. Science Daily, November 18, 2011. Scientists at the Chalmers have succeeded in creating light from a vacuum, observing an effect first predicted over 40 years ago. In an innovative experiment, the scientists have managed to capture some of the photons that are constantly appearing and disappearing in the vacuum. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 17:01 Eastern Time. Quick note. The results have been published in the Journal of Nature. The experiment is based on one of the most counterintuitive yet one of the most important principles in quantum mechanics. That vacuum is by no means empty nothingness. In fact, the vacuum is full of various particles that are continuously fluctuating in and out of existence. They exist for a brief moment and then disappear again. Since their existence is so fleeting, they are usually referred to as virtual particles. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20th, 2011, 17:10 Eastern Time. Quick note. Chalmers scientist Christopher Wilson and his co-workers have succeeded in getting photons to leave their virtual state and become real photons, i.e. measurable light. The physicist Moore predicted way back in 1970 that this should happen if the virtual photons are allowed to bounce off a mirror that is moving at the speed that is almost as high as the speed of light. The phenomenon known as the dynamical Casimir effect has now been observed for the first time in a brilliant experiment conducted by the Chalmers scientists. And Good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20, 2011, 17:11 Eastern Time. Quick note. Since it is not possible to get a mirror to move fast enough, we've developed another method for achieving the same effect. Instead of varying the physical distance to a mirror, we vary the electrical distance to an electrical short circuit that acts as a mirror for microwaves. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Sunday, November 20, 2011, 17:13 Eastern Time. Quick note. The mirror consists of a quantum electronic component referred to as a squid, superconducting quantum interference device which is extremely sensitive to magnetic fields. By changing the direction of the magnetic field several billions of times a second, the scientists were able to make the mirror vibrate at a speed of up to 25% of the speed of light. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Sunday, November 20, 2011, 17:16 Eastern Time. Quick note. The result was that photons appeared in pairs from the vacuum, which we were able to measure in the form of microwave radiation. We were also able to establish that the radiation had precisely the same properties that quantum theory says it should have when photons appear in pairs in this way. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Sunday, November 20, 2011, 17:17 Eastern Time. Quick note. What happens during the experiment is that the mirror transfers some of its kinetic energy to virtual photons, which helps them to materialize. According to quantum mechanics, there are many different types of virtual particles in vacuum, as mentioned earlier. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Sunday, November 20, 2011, 17:18 Eastern Time. Quick note. Relatively little energy is therefore required in order to excite them out of their virtual state. In principle, one could also create other particles from vacuum, such as electrons or photons, but that would require a lot more energy. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Sunday, November 20, 2011, 17:19 Eastern Time. Quick note. The scientists find the photons that appear in pairs, and the experiment interesting in study. In closer detail, they can perhaps be of use in the research field of quantum information, which includes the development of quantum computers. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Sunday, November 20, 2011, 17:20 Eastern Time. Quick note. However, the main value of the experiment is that it increases our understanding of basic physical concepts, such as vacuum fluctuations, the constant appearance and disappearance of virtual particles in vacuum. It is believed that vacuum fluctuations may have a connection with dark energy, which drives the acceleration and expansion of the universe. The discovery of this acceleration was recognized this year with the awarding of the Nobel Prize in Physics. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:25 Eastern Time. Quick note. What bacteria don't know can hurt them. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. Many infectious, even those caused by antibiotic-sensitive bacteria, resist treatment. This paradox has vexed physicians for decades and makes some infections impossible to cure. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:28 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. A key cause of this resistance is that bacteria become starved for nutrients during infection. Starved bacteria resisting killing by nearly every type of antibiotic, even ones they have never been exposed to before. What produces starvation-induced antibiotic resistance, and how can it be overcome? In a paper appearing this week in Science, researchers report some surprising answers. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:23 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Bacteria become starved when they exhaust nutrient supplies in the body, or if they live clustered together in groups known as biofilms. Biofilms are clusters of bacteria encased in a slimy coating, and can be found both in the natural environment as well as in the human tissue, where they cause disease. For example, biofilm bacteria grow in the scab of chronic wounds and the lungs of patients with cystic fibrosis. Bacteria and biofilms tolerate high level of antibiotics without being killed. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. A chief cause of the resistance of biofilms is that bacteria on the outside of the clusters have the first shot at the nutrients that diffuse in. This produces starvation of the bacteria inside clusters and severe resistance to killing. Starvation was previously thought to produce resistance because most antibiotics target cellular functions needed for growth. When starved cells stop growing, these targets are no longer active. This effect could reduce the effectiveness of many drugs. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:38 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. While this idea is appealing, it presents a major dilemma. Sensitizing starved bacteria to antibiotics could require stimulating their growth, and this could be dangerous during human infections. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:41 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Alternative mechanism. Microbiologists have long known that when bacteria sense that their nutrient supply is running low, they issue a chemical alarm signal. The alarm tells the bacteria to adjust their metabolism to prepare for starvation. Could this alarm also turn on functions that produce antibiotic resistance? And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:39 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. To test this idea, the team engineered bacteria in which the starvation alarm was inactivated, and then measured antibiotic resistance in experimental conditions in which bacteria were starved. To their amazement, bacteria unable to sense starvation were thousands of times more sensitive to killing than those that could, even though starvation arrested growth and the activity of antibiotic targets. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:46 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It told us that the resistance to starved bacteria was an active response that could be blocked. It also indicated that starvation-induced protection only occurred if bacteria were aware that nutrients were running low. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:49 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. With the exciting result in hand, the researchers turned to two key questions. First, does the starvation alarm produce resistance during actual infections? To test this, the team examined naturally starved bacteria biofilms isolates taken from patients and bacteria infections in mice. Sure enough, in all cases, the bacteria unable to sense starvation were far easier to kill. The second question was about the mechanism of the effect. How does starvation sensing produce such profound antibiotic resistance? Again, the results were surprising. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:53 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Instead of well-described resistant mechanisms, like pumps that expel antibiotics from bacteria cells, the researchers found that the bacterial protective mechanism defended them against toxic forms of oxygen called radicals. This mechanism jives with new findings showing that antibiotics kill by generating these toxic radicals. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Discovering new antibiotics has been challenging. One way to improve infection treatment is to make the drug we already have work better. Our experiments suggest that antibiotic efficiency could be increased by disrupting key bacterial functions that have no obvious connection to antibiotic activity. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 3:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The work also highlights the critical advantage of being able to sense environmental conditions, even for single-celled organisms like bacteria. Cells unaware of their starvation were not protected, even though they ran out of nutrients and stopped growth. This proves again that even for bacteria, what you don't know can hurt you. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 9:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. New revolutionary material can be worked like glass. Science Daily, November 18, 2011. A common feature of sailboards, aircraft, and electronic circuits is that they all contain resins used for their lightness, strength, and resistance. However, once cured, these resins can no longer be reshaped. Only certain inorganic compounds, including glass, offered this possibility until now. Combining such properties in a single material seemed impossible, until a team, developed a new class of compounds capable of this remarkable feat. Repairable and recyclable, this novel material can be shaped at will and in a reversible manner at high temperature. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 9:34 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. And quite surprisingly, it also retains certain properties specific to organic resins and rubbers. It is light, insoluble, and difficult to break, inexpensive and easy to produce. This material could be used in numerous industrial applications, particularly in the automobile, aeronautics, building, electronics, and leisure sectors. This work is published on 18 November 2011 in Science. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Replacing metals by lighter but just as efficient materials is a necessity for numerous industries such as aeronautics, car manufacturing, building, electronics, and sports. Industry due to their exceptional mechanical strength and thermal and chemical resistance. Composite materials based on thermal setting resins are currently the most suitable. However, such resins must be cured in situ, using from the outset the definitive shape of the part to be produced. In fact, once these resins have hardened welding and repair become impossible. In addition, even when hot, it is impossible to reshape parts in the manner of the blacksmith or glassmaker. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 9:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This is because glass in organic silica is a unique material once heated. It changes from a solid to a liquid state in a very progressive manner. Glass transition, which means it can be shaped as required without using molds. Conceiving highly resistant materials that can be repaired and are infinitely malleable, like glass, is a real challenge both in economic and ecological terms. It requires a material that is capable of flowing when hot, while being insoluble and neither as brittle nor as heavy as glass. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Monday, November 21st, 2011, 9:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. From ingredients that are currently available and used in industry: epoxy resins, hardeners, catalysts. A novel organic material made of a molecular network with original properties under the action of heat. This network is capable of reorganizing itself without altering the number of cross links between its atoms. This novel material goes from the liquid to the solid state, or vice versa, just like glass. Until now, only silica and some inorganic compounds were known to show this type of behavior. The material thus acts like purely organic silica. It is insoluble even when heated above its glass transition temperature. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Monday, November 21st, 2011, 9:52 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Remarkably, at room temperature, it resembles either hard or soft elastic solids, depending on the chosen composition. In both cases, it has the same characteristics as thermal-setting resins and rubbers currently used in industry, namely lightness, resistance, and insolubility. Most importantly, it has a significant advantage over the latter, as it is reshapeable at will and can be repaired and recycled under the action of heat. This property means it can undergo transformations using methods that cannot be envisaged either for thermal-setting resins or for conventional plastic materials. In particular, it makes it possible to produce shapes that are difficult or even impossible to obtain by molding, or for which making a mold is too expensive for the envisaged purpose. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 9:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Used as a basis of composites, this new material could therefore favorably compete with metals and find extensive applications in sectors as diverse as electronics, car manufacturing, construction, aeronautics, and printing. In addition to these applications, these results shed unexpected light on a fundamental problem: the physics of glass transition. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2024 Eastern Time. Quick note. How the fly flies, scientists discover gene switch responsible for flight muscle formation. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. Flies are real flight artists, although they only have small wings compared to their body size. Scientists at the Max Planck Institute, MPI, of Biochemistry in Germany recently identified the genetic switch that regulates the formation of flight muscles. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2026 Eastern Time. Quick note. The gene spalt is essential for generation of the ultra-fast super muscles. Emphasizes, without spalt, the fly builds only normal leg muscles instead of flight muscles. The scientists' results have now been published in Nature. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2027 Eastern Time. Quick note. In order to fly efficiently, flies have to flap their small wings very fast. The cause is the familiar buzzing and humming of the small beast. A fruit fly just off Madagascar moves her wings at a frequency of 200 Hz. That means its flight muscles contract and relax 200 times per second. In contrast, a 100-meter sprinter who moves his legs only a few times per second moves like a snail. How can the fruit fly flap its wings at such a high frequency? And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2029 Eastern Time. Quick note. Muscles control all body movements, including the wing oscillations. However, flight muscles are unique. Their contractions are not only regulated by nerve impulses as usual, but additionally triggered by tension. Every fly has two categories of flight muscles which enable the wing oscillations. One type moves the wings down and at the same time stretches the other type, which induces its contraction. Such the wings are pulled up again and stable wing oscillations begin. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 2031 Eastern Time. Quick note. Don't spalt, you are flightless by means of targeted gene silencing in the fruit fly. Scientists in the research group Muscle Dynamics at the MPI of Biochemistry have now identified the switch essential for the formation of flight muscles. SPALT transcription factors like SPALT play an important role for the correct transcription of the genetic information into RNA and proteins necessary in the respective cell type. SPALT only exists in flight muscles and is responsible for the specific architecture of their myofibrils. These components of muscle fibers alone enable the contraction of a muscle in response to the applied tension during the oscillations. Without SPALT, the flies survive, but are flightless. The flight muscles no longer react to tension and behave like normal leg muscles. Vice versa, the scientists succeeded in creating flight muscle-like muscles in the fly's legs by only inserting SPALT. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:33 Eastern Time. Quick note. These results could be medically important. Human body muscles do not have SPALT and are hardly regulated by tension. But the human cardiac muscle builds SPALT, and the tension inside the ventricle influences the heartbeat intensity. Whether SPALT plays a role in heartbeat regulation is not yet known and remains to be investigated. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:42 Eastern Time. Quick note. Ozone from rock fracture could serve as earthquake early warning. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. Researchers the world over are seeking reliable ways to predict earthquakes, focusing on identifying seismic precursors that, if detected early enough, could serve as early warnings. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:43 Eastern Time. Quick note. New research published this week in the Journal of Applied Physics Letters suggests that ozone gas emitted from fracturing rocks could serve as an indicator of impending earthquakes. Ozone is a natural gas, a byproduct of electrical discharges into the air from several sources, such as from lighting or, according to the new research, from rocks breaking under pressure. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:46 Eastern Time. Quick note. Scientists in the lab, a professor of engineering physics in the University of Virginia School of Engineering and Applied Science, set up experiments to measure ozone produced by crushing or drilling into different igneous and metamorphic rocks, including granite, basalt, gneiss, rhyolite, and quartz. Different rocks produce different amounts of ozone, with rhyolite producing the strongest ozone emission. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:47 Eastern Time. Quick note. Sometime prior to an earthquake, pressures begin to build, and underground faults. These pressures fracture rocks and presumably would produce detectable ozone. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:48 Eastern Time. Quick note. To distinguish whether the ozone was coming from the rocks or from reactions in the atmosphere, the researchers conducted experiments in pure oxygen, nitrogen, and helium, and carbon dioxide. They found that ozone was produced by fracturing rocks only in conditions containing oxygen atoms, such as air, carbon dioxide, and pure oxygen molecules, indicating that it came from reactions in the gas. This suggests that rock fractures may be detectable by measuring ozone. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:50 Eastern Time. Quick note. Scientists began the study by wondering if animals, which seem at least anecdotally to be capable of anticipating earthquakes, may be sensitive to changing levels of ozone, and therefore able to react in advance to earthquake. It occurred that if fracturing rocks create ozone, then ozone detectors might be used as warning devices in the same way that animal behavior changes might be indicators of seismic activity. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:51 Eastern Time. Quick note. If future research shows a positive correlation between ground-level ozone near geological faults and earthquakes, an array of interconnected ozone detectors could monitor anomalous patterns when rock fracture induces the release of ozone from underground and surface cracks. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Monday, November 21st, 2011, 20:52 Eastern Time. Quick note. Such an area located away from the areas with high levels of ground ozone could be useful for giving early warning to earthquakes. A detection of an increase of ground ozone might also be useful in anticipating disasters in tunnel evacuation, landslides, and underground mines. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 2:56 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Large nest of juvenile dinosaurs, first of their genus ever found. Science Daily, November 21st, 2011. A nest containing the fossilized remains of 15 juvenile Protoceratops andrewsi dinosaurs from Mongolia has been described by the University of Rhode Island paleontologists, revealing new information about postnatal development and parental care. It is the first nest of this genus ever found and the first indication that Protoceratops juveniles remained in the nest for an extended period. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 2:58 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Finding juveniles at the nest is a relatively uncommon occurrence, and I cannot think of another dinosaur specimen that preserves 50 juveniles at its nest in this way. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 2:59 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The analyst is 70-million-year-old nest by, and his colleagues found that 15 dinosaurs, at least 10 of which are complete specimens, were about the same size and had achieved the same state of growth and development, suggested they represent a single clutch from a single mother. The discovery also indicates that the young dinosaurs remained in the nest through the early stages of postnatal development and were cared for by their parents. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Protoceratops grew to about 6 feet long. It may have taken as long as 10 years to reach full size. Those found in the nest were likely less than 1 year old when they died. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. I suspect that the preserved animals were rapidly buried by the shifting accumulating sands that must have constituted the bulk of sedimentation in the setting. Death likely occurred during a desert sandstorm. My guess is that the initial and present-day dryness contributed significantly to the superb preservation, not just Protoceratops, but of all the fossils from this unit. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Protoceratops, a fascinating and unexpected mass of contradictions. It is an herbivore that lived in a sand sea, much like a Sahara desert, and likely bestowed significant parental care on a relatively large number of offspring, perhaps because it lived where mortality was quite high. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. A wide variety of theropod dinosaurs lived in Mongolia. At the time, some of which, including the notorious Velociraptor, probably ate young Protoceratops. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:08 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Juvenile Protoceratops mortality may have been rather high, not only from predation but from a potentially stressful environment, and large clutches may have been a way of ensuring survival of the animals in that setting. Nonetheless, if preservation is any indicator of abundance in life, then during the life represented by the formation, Protoceratops were a very common feature of Mongolia late Cretaceous desert landscapes. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Tweaking a gene makes muscle twice as strong. New avenue for treating muscle degeneration in people who can exercise. Science Daily, November 21st, 2011. An international team of scientists has created super strong, high-endurance mice and worms by suppressing a natural muscle growth inhibitor, suggesting treatments for age-related or genetics-related muscle degeneration are within reach. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:11 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The scientists found that a tiny inhibitor may be responsible for determining the strength of our muscles by acting on the genome regulator NCOR1. They were able to modulate the activity of certain genes, creating a strain of mighty mice whose muscles were twice as strong as those of normal mice. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:13 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. There are now ways to develop drugs for people who are unable to exercise due to obesity or other health complications such as diabetes, immobility, and frailty. We can now engineer specific gene networks in muscle to give the benefits of exercise to sedentary mice. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Molecules such as NCOR1 are molecular brakes that decrease the activity of genes. Releasing the brake by mutation or with chemicals can reactivate gene circuits to provide more energy to muscle and enhance its activity. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Journal Cell Salk researchers and their collaborators reported on the results of experiments done in parallel on mice and nematodes. By genetically manipulating the offspring of these species, the researchers were able to suppress NCOR1, which normally acts to inhibit the buildup of muscle tissues. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:23 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In the absence of the inhibitor, the muscle tissue developed much more effectively. The mice with the mutation became true marathoners, capable of running faster and longer before showing any signs of fatigue. In fact, they were able to cover almost twice the distance run by mice that hadn't received the treatment. They also inhibited better cold tolerance. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:28 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Unlike previous experiments that focus on genetic accelerators, this work shows that suppressing an inhibitor is a new way to build muscles. Examination under a microscope confirmed that the muscle fibers of the modified mice are denser. The muscles are more massive, and the cells in the tissue contain higher numbers of mitochondria, cellular organelles that deliver energy to the muscles. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:29 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Similar results were also observed in nematode worms, allowing the scientists to conclude that their results could be applicable to a large range of living creatures. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The scientists have not yet detected any harmful side effects associated with eliminating the NCOR1 receptor from muscle and fat tissues. Although the experiments involve genetic manipulations, the researchers are already investigating potential drug molecules that could be used to reduce the receptor's effectiveness. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:32 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers say their results are a milestone in our understanding of certain fundamental mechanisms of living organisms, in particular the little-studied role of core-pressors, molecules that inhibit the expression of genes. In addition, they give a glimpse at possible long-term therapeutical applications. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:34 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This could be used to combat muscle weakness in elderly, which leads to falls and contributes to hospitalizations. In addition, we think that this could be used as a basis for developing a treatment for genetic muscular dystrophy. He added that if these results are confirmed in humans, there is no question they will attract interest from athletes as well as medical experts. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:42 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. NASA orbiter catches Mars sand dunes in motion. Science Daily, November 21st, 2011. Images from NASA Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter show sand dunes and ripples moving across the surface of Mars at dozens of locations and shifting up to several yards. These observations reveal the planet's sandy surface is more dynamic than previously thought. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Mars either has more gusts of wind than we knew about before, or the winds are capable of transporting more sand. We used to think of the sand on Mars as relatively immobile, so these observations are changing our whole perspective. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:44 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. While red dust is known to swirl all around Mars in storms and dust devils, the planet's dark and sand grains are larger and harder to move. Less than a decade ago, scientists thought the dunes and ripples on Mars either did not budge or moved too slowly for detection. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:46 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. MRO was launched in 2005. Initial images from the spacecraft's high-resolution image science experiment high-rise camera documented only a few cases of shifting sand dunes and ripples, collectively called bed forms. Now, after years of monitoring the Martian surface, the spacecraft has documented movements of a few yards or meters per year in dozens of locations across the planet. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The air on Mars is thin, so stronger gusts of wind are needed to push a grain of sand. Wind tunnel experiments have shown that a patch of sand would take winds of about 80 miles per hour, nearly 130 kilometers per hour, to move on Mars, compared with only 10 miles per hour, about 16 kilometers per hour, on Earth. Measurements from the meteorology experiments on NASA Viking landers in the 1970s and early 1980s, in addition to climate models, showed such winds should be rare on Mars. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:51 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The first hints that Martian Duns move came from NASA Mars Global Surveyor, which operated from 1997 to 2006, but the spacecraft cameras lacked the resolution to definitely detect the changes. NASA's Mars exploration rovers also detected hints of shifting sand when they touched down on the red planet's surface in 2004. The mission team was surprised to see grains of sand dotting the rover's solar panels. They also witnessed the rover's track marks filling in with sand. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:52 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Sand moves by hopping from place to place. Before the rovers landed on Mars, we had no clear evidence of sand moving. Not all of the sand on Mars is blowing in the wind. The study also identified several areas where the bed forms did not move. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. This Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:53 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The sand dunes where we didn't see movement today could have larger grains, or perhaps their surface layers are cemented together. These studies show the benefit of long-term monitoring at high resolution. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 3:54 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. According to scientists, the seemingly stationary areas might move on much larger timescales, triggered by climate cycles on Mars that last tens of thousands of years. The tilt of Mars' axis relative to its orbital plane can vary dramatically. This, combined with the oval shape of Mars' orbit, can cause extreme changes in the Martian climate, much greater than those experienced on Earth. Mars may once have been warm enough that the carbon dioxide, now frozen in the polar ice caps, could have been free to form a thicker atmosphere, leading to stronger winds capable of transporting sand. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:04 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Human artificial intelligence joined forces to pinpoint fossil locations. Science Daily, November 21st, 2011. In 1991, a team led by Washington University St. Louis paleoanthropologist Glenn Conroy, PhD, discovered the fossils of the first, and still the only, known pre-human ape ever found south of the equator in Africa after only 30 minutes of searching a limestone cave in Namibia. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:06 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Traditionally, fossil hunters often could only make educated guesses as to where fossils lie. The rest lay with chance, finding the proverbial needle in a haystack. I don't want to say it is total luck, says Conroy, professor of physical anthropology and arts and sciences, but it's a combination of hard work, meticulous planning, and good dose of luck. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:06 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. But thanks to a software model used by Conroy and researchers at Western Michigan University, fossil hunters' reliance on luck when finding fossils may be diminishing. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Using artificial neural networks, ANNs, computer networks that imitate the workings of the human brain, developed a computer model that can pinpoint productive fossil sites in the Great Divide Basin, 4,000 square mile stretch of rocky desert in Wyoming. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:08 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The basin has proved to be a productive area for fossil hunters, yielding 50 million to 70 million year old early mammal fossils. The software builds on satellite imagery and maps fossil hunters have used for years to locate the best fossil sites. It just takes the process a step further. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. With information gathered from maps and satellite imagery, such as elevation, slope terrain, and many other landscape features, the ANN was trained to use details of existing fossiliferous areas to accurately predict the locations of other fossil sites elsewhere in the Great Divide Basin. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:22 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Because a few sites are 100% identical, researchers had to teach the ANNs to recognize sites that shared key features in common. With the help of guidance from scientists, the ANNs use pattern recognition to identify sites that share similar features. The beautiful and powerful neural networks lie in the fact that they are capable of learning. You just need to give them a rule to deal with things they don't know. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:25 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Conroy and colleagues tested the software at the Great Divide Basin last summer. The ANNs correctly identified 79% of the area's known fossil sites, and 99% of the sites it tagged contained fossils. Next up, the scientists tested the software on a nearby Bison Basin, also Wyoming, despite having been taught to recognize fossil sites at a neighboring location, the Great Divide Basin. The ANNs correctly identified 4 fossil sites in the Bison Basin. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 6:27 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. That gave us encouragement that a blind test based on a neural network for a different basin still gave us pretty good predictive results. Next, Conroy is planning to continue to use the software to search for early hominid fossil sites in South Africa. The scientists hope this new application of existing technology will help increase the efficiency of paleontological fieldwork. In the old days, we'd all bring different maps and start walking, Conroy says. Now we are talking about ways to improve one's chances. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:31 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Cassini chronicles life of Saturn's giant storm. Science Daily, November 21st, 2011. New images and animated movies from NASA Cassini spacecraft chronicle the birth and evolution of the colossal storm that ravaged the northern face of Saturn for nearly a year. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:32 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. These new full-color mosaics and animations show the storm from its emergence as a tiny spot in a single image almost 1 year ago, on December 5, 2010, through its subsequent growth into a storm so large it completely encircled the planet by late January 2011. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The monster tempest, which extended north-south approximately 9,000 miles, 15,000 kilometers, is the largest seen on Saturn in the past 2 decades and is the largest by far ever observed on the planet from an interplanetary spacecraft. On the same day that Cassini's high-resolution cameras captured the first images of the storm, Cassini radio and plasma wave instrument detected the storm's electrical activity, revealing it to be a convective thunderstorm. The storm's active convecting phase ended in late June, but the turbulent clouds it created linger in the atmosphere today. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The storm's 200-day active period also makes it the longest-lasting planet-encircling storm ever seen on Saturn. The previous record holder was an outburst sighted in 1903, which lingered for 150 days. The large disturbance image 21 years ago by NASA Hubble Space Telescope, and comparable in size to the current storm, lasted only 55 days. Good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The Saturn storm is more like a volcano than a terrestrial weather system. Cassini Imaging Team member of California Institute of Technology and Pasenda. The pressure builds up for many years before the storm erupts. The mystery is that there is no rock to resist the pressure to delay the eruption for so many years. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:38 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Cassini has taken hundreds of images of this storm as part of the image team's Saturn Storm Watch campaign during this effort. Cassini takes quick looks at the storm in between other scheduled observations of either Saturn or its rings and moons. The new images, together with other high-quality images collected by Cassini since 2004, allow scientists to trace back the subtle changes on the planet that preceded the storm's formation and have revealed insights into the storm's development, its wind speeds, and the altitudes at which its changes occur. Good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The storm first appeared at approximately 35 degrees north latitude on Saturn and eventually wrapped itself around the entire planet to cover approximately 2 billion square miles, 5 billion square kilometers. The biggest disturbance Cassini had previously witnessed on Saturn occurred in a latitude band in the southern hemisphere called Storm Alley. Because of the prevalence of thunderstorms in this region, that storm lasted several months, from 2009 into 2010. That disturbance was actually a cluster of thunderstorms, each of which lasted up to 5 days or so and affected only the local weather. The recent northern disturbance is a single thunderstorm that raged continuously for more than 200 days and impacted almost one-fifth of the entire northern hemisphere. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:44 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This new storm is a completely different kind of beast compared to anything we saw on Saturn previously with Cassini. Cassini Image Team, Associate Planetary Science, University of California, Los Angeles. The fact that such outbursts are episodic and keep happening on Saturn every 20 to 30 years or so is telling us something about deep inside the planet, but we have yet to figure out what it is. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Current plans to continue the mission through 2017 will provide opportunities for Cassini to witness further changes in the planet's atmosphere as the seasons progress to northern summer. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:46 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It is a capability of being in orbit and able to turn a scrutinizing eye wherever it is needed that has allowed us to monitor this extraordinary phenomenon. 7 years of taking advantage of such opportunities have already made Cassini one of the most scientifically productive planetary missions ever flown. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 9:58 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Predators drive the evolution of poison dart frog skin patterns. Science Daily, November 21st, 2011. Natural selection has played a role in the development of many skin patterns of the tiny Rhinitomea imitator poison dart frog, according to the study that will be published in the upcoming edition of American Naturalist by University of Montreal biologists. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 10:00 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers' methodology was rather unusual. On 3 occasions over 3 days, at 2 different sites, scientists investigated a number of attacks that had been made on fake frogs by counting how many times that had been pecked. Those that were attacked the least looked like local frogs, while those that came from another area had obviously been targeted. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 10:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The brightly colored frogs that we find in tropical forests are in fact sending a clear message to predators. Don't come near me. I'm poisonous, but why would a single species need multiple patterns when one would do it? It appears that when predators do not recognize a poisonous frog as being a member of the local group, it attacks in the hope that it has chanced upon edible prey. When predators see that their targets are of a different species, they attack over the long term. That explains how patterns and colors become uniform in an area. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 10:08 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. A total of 3,600 life-size plasticine models, each less than 1 centimeter long, were used in the study. The menagerie was divided between 2 carefully identified sites in the Amazon forest. The trickiest part was transporting my models without arousing suspicion at the airport and custom controls. He chose plasticine following a review of scientific literature. Many scientists have successfully used plasticine to create models of snakes, salamanders, and poison dart frogs. The Peruvian part of the forest proved to be ideal for this study, as 2 radically different-looking groups of frogs are found there. One living on a plain has yellow stripes, and the other living on a mountain has green patches. The 2 colonies are 10 kilometers apart. 900 fake frogs were placed in each area in the carefully targeted positions. Various combinations of colors and patterns were used. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, 10:14 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Scientists was particularly surprised by the very small spatial scale at which the evolutionary process has taken place. 10 kilometers of separation sufficed for a clearly different adaptation to take place. A second surprise was the learning abilities of the predator community, especially the speed at which the learning process takes place when a new and exotic defensive signal is introduced on a massive scale. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Erratic extreme day-to-day weather puts climate change in new light. Science Daily, November 15, 2011. The first climate study to focus on variations in daily weather conditions has found that day-to-day weather has grown increasingly erratic and extreme, with significant fluctuations in sunshine and rainfall affecting more than a third of the planet. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Princeton University researchers recently reported in the Journal of Climate that extremely sunny or cloudy days are more common than in the early 1980s, and that swings from thunderstorms to dry days rose considerably since the late 1990s. These swings can have consequences for ecosystem stability, and the control of pests and diseases, as well as for industries such as agriculture and the solar energy production, all of which are vulnerable to inconsistent and extreme weather, the researchers noted. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:04 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The day-to-day variations also could affect what scientists can expect to see as Earth's climate changes, according to the researchers and other scientists familiar with the work. Constant fluctuations and severe conditions could alter how the atmosphere distributes heat and rainfall, as well as inhibit the ability of plants to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, possibly leading to higher levels of the greenhouse gas than currently accounted for. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:08 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Monthly averages reflect a misty world that is a little rainy and cloudy every day. That is very different from the weather of our actual world, where some days are very sunny and dry. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:09 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Our work adds to what we know about climate change in the real world and places the whole problem of climate change in a new light. Nobody has looked for these daily changes on a global scale. We usually think of climate change as an increase in mean global temperature and potentially more extreme conditions. There is practically no discussion of day-to-day variability. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:07 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The Princeton findings stress that analysis of erratic daily conditions such as frequent thunderstorms may in fact be crucial to truly understanding the factors shaping the climate and affecting the atmosphere. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. It is important to know what the daily extremes might do because we might care about that sooner. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:09 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Roswell said existing climate change models show light rain more frequently than they should and don't show extreme precipitation. If it rains a little bit every day, the atmosphere may respond differently than if there's a really big rainstorm once every week. One of the things you find about rainstorms is that the really extreme ones are at a scale the atmosphere responds to. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Although climate change models predict future changes in weather, as the planet warms, those calculations are hindered by a lack of representation of day-to-day patterns. If you don't know what role variability is playing, you are not in a very strong position for making remarks about how it might change in the future. We are at a stage where we had better take a look at what this research is pointing out. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:16 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers observed at least some increase in variability for 35% of the world during the time periods analyzed. Regions such as the Equatorial Africa and Asia experienced the greatest increase in the frequency of extreme conditions, with erratic shifts in weather occurring throughout the year. In more temperate regions such as the United States, day-to-day variability increased to a lesser degree and typically only seasonally. In the northeastern United States, for instance, sudden jumps from sunny to bleak days became more common during the winter from 1984 to 2007. Good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:17 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In the 23 years that sunshine variability rose for tropical Africa and Asia, those areas also showed a greater occurrence of towering thunderstorm clouds known as convective clouds. Tropical areas that experienced more and more unbalanced levels of sunshine and rainfall witnessed an in-kind jump in convective cloud cover, although the relationship between these clouds and weather variations needs more study. The findings could indicate that the sunnier days accelerate the rate at which water evaporates, then condenses in the atmosphere to form rain, thus producing heavy rain more often. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:19 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Storms have lasting effects on daily weather patterns. Although the most extreme weather variations in the study were observed in the tropics, spurts of extreme weather are global in reach. The atmosphere, he said, is a fluid, and when severe weather such as the convective cloud thunderstorm punches it, the disturbance spreads around the world, weather that increasingly leaps from one extreme condition to another in a short period of time. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:21 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Wherever it is raining heavy, especially or variably, is where the atmosphere is being punched. As soon as it is punched somewhere in the tropics, it starts waves that go all the way around the planet. So we can see waves coming off the West Pacific convection activity and going all the way around the planet in the tropical band. The atmosphere also has the job of moving heat from the equator to the poles. and storms are the source of heat to the atmosphere. So if a storm's location or its timing or its seasonality is altered, that's going to change how the circulation responds. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:23 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. These sweeping atmospheric changes can interact with local conditions such as temperature and topography to skew regular weather patterns. Signals end up going over the whole globe, and whether they are important in a particular place or not depends on what else is happening. But you can think of the storms as being a disturbance in an otherwise smooth flow. That's why this is a climate issue, even though we are talking about daily variability in specific locations. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:25 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The impact of these fluctuations on natural and human-made systems could be as substantial as the fallout predicted from rises in Earth's average temperature. Inconsistent sunshine could impair the effectiveness of solar energy production, and with fluctuating rainfall also included harm agriculture. Hotter conditions also breed disease and parasites such as mosquitoes, particularly in tropical areas. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:26 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. On a larger scale, wild shifts in day-to-day conditions would diminish the ability of trees and plants to remove carbon from the atmosphere. University researchers reported in the Journal of Proceedings of National Academy of Science that erratic rain and sunlight impair photosynthesis. That study concluded that this effect upsets the structure of ecosystems as certain plants and trees, particularly broad-leafed trees more than conifers, adapt better than others. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:27 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In the context of the current study, the impact of variability of photosynthesis could mean that more carbon will remain in the atmosphere than climate models currently anticipate, considering that the models factor in normal plant-based carbon absorption. Moreover, if the meteorological tumult observed is caused by greenhouse gases, these fluctuations can become self-perpetuating by increasingly trapping the gases that agitated weather patterns in the first place. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 7:28 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We have not yet looked for direct ties between weather variability and increased carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, but I would not be surprised if they are connected in some way. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, and 7:29 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Increases in variability diminish the efficiency with which plants and trees remove carbon dioxide from the air. All of a sudden, the land and the atmosphere are no longer in balance, and plants cannot absorb levels of carbon dioxide proportional to the concentrations in the environment. That will affect everybody. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:13 Eastern Time. Quick note. Fossil moths show their true colors. Science Daily, November 15, 2011. The brightest hues in nature are produced by tiny patterns in, say, feathers or scales rather than pigments. These so-called structural colors are widespread, giving apples their fire, people their blue eyes, and peacocks their brilliant feathers. Many animals use this type of color for communication, notably butterflies and moths. Lepidopterans, which display the biggest range of structural colors and put them to use, from advertising their toxicity to choosing the best mates. But despite the importance of structural colors in their lives, little is known about how lepidopterans develop these key social signals. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:15 Eastern Time. Quick note. Now on the November 15 issue of PLOS Biology, paleontologist Maria McNamara, Yale University and colleagues bring us closer to origins of structural colors by reconstructing them in fossil moths that are 47 million years old. This is the first evidence of structurally colored scales in fossil lepidopterans. The fossil moths came from the Mesel oil shale in Germany, a site famous for exquisite fossil preservation. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. Is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:18 Eastern Time. Quick note. Although the original colors of the fossil moth were not preserved, the researchers were able to reconstruct them because the tiny color-producing patterns in the moth scales were intact. The level of detail preserved in the scales of the fossil moth is just spectacular. McNamara, the fossil moths, owe their color to a stack of layers inside the scales. These layers form a fossil multi-layer reflector, which usually produces iridescent color that changes depending on viewing angle, but other details of the fossil scale suppress this effect, producing instead muted colors. The moths basically wanted to appear the same color from different angles. They didn't want flashy iridescence And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:21 Eastern Time. Quick note. Today the front wings of the ancient moss look mostly blue, presumably because the chemistry of the cuticle was altered during the process of fossilization. The researchers reconstructed the original colors via a mathematical analysis of the scale ultrastructure, revealing the wings had actually been yellow-green when the moths were alive. Modern butterflies and moths use bright, contrasting colors to communicate with each other, and muted greens to camouflage themselves in leafy habitats. This makes it likely that the fossil moths used their yellow-green wings to blend in with leaves, suggesting that this strategy for hiding in plain sight had evolved as early as 47 million years ago amongst lepidopterans. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 9:22 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The fossils are thought to be from extinct relatives of today's forester moths, which feed on flower nectar. If this was also true of these ancient moths, their yellow-green wings would have stood out while feeding. The researchers suggest that the being easy to see on flowers could have served as a warning to predators. Modern forester moths can synthesize cyanide, making them taste bad, and their ancestors may have already developed this capability. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:27 Eastern Time. Quick note. These findings shed light on the evolution of tactics for predator avoidance and deterrence in forester moths. In addition, by showing that the original structural colors of fossil moths can be reconstructed, this work leads to the way for finding the origins of many ways butterfly and moth species use this type of color to communicate amongst each other, as well as with predators. Reconstructing the original colors of ancient animals gives us really good insights into their behavior. McNamara, these moth fossils hint that we can even do this for fossils that don't have obvious color. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:34 Eastern Time. Quick note. New lighting fast, efficient nanoscale data transmission. Science Daily, November 15, 2011. A team at Stanford School of Engineering has demonstrated an ultra-fast nanoscale light-emitting diode LED that is orders of magnitude lower in power consumption than today's laser-based systems, and is able to transmit data at a very rapid rate of 10 billion bits per second. The researchers say it is a major step forward in providing a practical ultra-fast, low-power light source for on-a-chip data transmission. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:36 Eastern Time. Quick note. Bakovic had earlier this year produced a nanoscale laser that was similarly efficient and fast, but that device operated only at temperatures below 150 degrees Kelvin, about minus 190 degrees Fahrenheit, making it impractical for commercial use. The new device operates at room temperature and could therefore represent an important step toward next-generation computer chips. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:37 Eastern Time. Quick note. Low-power electrically controlled light sources are vital for next-generation optical systems to meet the growing energy demands of the computer industry. This moves us in that direction significantly. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:38 Eastern Time. Quick note. Single-mode light. The LED in question is a single-mode LED, a special type of diode that emits light more or less at a single wavelength similarly to a laser. Traditionally, engineers have thought only lasers can communicate at high data rates and ultra-low power. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:45 Eastern Time. Quick note. Nanophotonics is key to the technology. In the heart of their device, the engineers have inserted little islands of the light-emitting material indium arsenide, which when pulsed with electricity produce light. These quantum dots are surrounded by photonic crystal, an area of tiny holes etched in the semiconductor. The photonic crystal serves as a mirror that bounces the light toward the center of the device, confining it inside the LED and forcing it to resonate at a single frequency. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:48 Eastern Time. Quick note. In other words, it becomes single mode. Without these nanophotonic ingredients, the quantum dots and the photonic crystal, it is impossible to make an LED efficient, single mode and fast, all at the same time. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:51 Eastern Time. Quick note. Engineering ingenuity. The new device includes a bit of engineering ingenuity. Two existing devices are actual two devices, a laser coupled with an external modulator. Both devices require electricity Bakovic's diode combines light transmission and modulation, functions into one device, drastically reducing energy consumption. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 21:52 Eastern Time. Quick note. In tech-speak, the new LED device transmit data, on average, at 0.25 femtojoules per bit of data. By comparison, today's typical low-power laser device requires about 500 femtojoules to transmit the same bit. Our device is some 2,000 times more energy efficient than best devices in use today. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:01 Eastern Time. Quick note. Cool clouds of Carina. Apex reveals new view. Star formation in the Carina Nebula. Science Daily, November 16, 2011. Observations made with the Apex telescope and some millimeter wavelength light reveal the cold, dusty clouds from which stars from in the Carina Nebula. This site of violent star formation, which plays host to some of the highest mass stars in our galaxy, is an ideal arena in which to study the interactions between these young stars as their parent molecular clouds. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:03 Eastern Time. Quick note. At this wavelength, most of the light seen is the weak heat glow from cosmic dust grains. The image therefore reveals the clouds of dust and molecular gas, mostly hydrogen, from which stars may form. At minus 250 degrees Celsius, the dust grains are very cold, and the faint glow emanating from them can only be seen at submillimeter wavelengths, significantly longer than those of visible light. Submillimeter light is therefore key to studying how stars form and how they interact with their parent clouds. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:05 Eastern Time. Quick note. The Apex Laboca observations are shown here in orange in tones, combined with visible light image from the Curtis Skimet telescope on the Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory. The result is dramatic, wide-field picture that provides a spectacular view of Carina star formation. Sites, the nebula contains stars with a total mass equivalent to over 25,000 suns, while the mass of the gas and dust clouds is that of about 140,000 suns. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:07 Eastern Time. Quick note. However, only a fraction of the gas in the Carina Nebula is in sufficiently dense clouds to collapse and form new stars in the immediate future. In astronomical terms, meaning within the next million years. In the longer term, the dramatic effects of the massive stars already in the region on their surrounding clouds may accelerate the star formation rate. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:08 Eastern Time. Quick note. High-mass stars live for only a few million years at most, a very short lifespan compared to the 10 billion years of the Sun, but they profoundly influence their environments throughout their lives. As youngsters, these stars emit strong winds and radiation that shape the clouds around them, perhaps compressing them enough to form new stars. At the ends of their lives, they are highly unstable, being prone to outbursts of cellular material until their deaths in violent supernova explosions. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:13 Eastern Time. Quick note. A prime example of these violent stars is Eta Carina, the bright yellowish star just to the upper left of the center of the image. It has over 100 times the mass of our Sun, and is among the most luminous stars known. Within the next million years or so, Eta Carina will explode as a supernova, followed by yet more supernova from other massive stars in the region. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:18 Eastern Time. Quick note. These violent explosions rip through the molecular gas clouds and their immediate surroundings, but after the shock waves have traveled more than about 10 light years, they are weaker, and may instead compress clouds that are a little further away, triggering the formation of new generations of stars. The supernova may also produce short-lived radioactive atoms that are picked up by the collapsing clouds. There is strong evidence that similar radioactive atoms were incorporated into the cloud that collapsed to form our Sun and planets, so the Carina Nebula may provide additional insights into the creation of our own solar system. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:22 Eastern Time. Quick note. The Carina Nebula is some 7,500 light-years distant in the constellation of the same name, Carina, or the Keel. It is among the brightest nebula in the sky because of its large population of high-mass stars. At about 150 light-years across, it is several times larger than the well-known Orion Nebula, even though it is several times further away than the Orion Nebula. Its apparent size on the sky is therefore about the same, making it also one of the largest nebula in the sky. And Good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 22:26 Eastern Time. Quick note. The 12-meter diameter Apex telescope is a pathfinder for ELMA, the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, a revolutionary new telescope that ESO, together with its international partners, is building and operating. Also on the plateau, Apex is itself based on a single prototype antenna constructed for the ELMA project, while the ELMA will be an array of 54 antennas with 12 meters diameter, and an additional 12 antennas with 7-meter diameter. While ELMA will have far higher angular resolution than Apex, its field of view will be much smaller. The two telescopes are complementary. For example, Apex will find many targets across wide areas of sky, which ELMA will be able to study in great detail. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:26 Eastern Time. Quick note. Evidence for Great Lake on Europa and potential new habitat for life. Science Daily, November 16, 2011. In a significant finding in the search for life beyond Earth, scientists from the University of Texas in Austin and elsewhere have discovered what appears to be a body of liquid water, the volume of the North America Great Lakes, locked inside the icy shell of Jupiter's moon Europa. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:28 Eastern Time. Quick note. The water could represent a potential habitat for life, and many more such lakes might exist throughout the shallow regions of Europa's shell. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:28 Eastern Time. Quick note. Further increasing the potential for life, the newly discovered lake is covered by floating ice shelves that seem to be collapsing, providing a mechanism for transferring nutrients and energy between the surface and a vast ocean already inferred to exist below the thick ice shell. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:28 Eastern Time. Quick note. One opinion in the scientific community has been, if the ice shell is thick, that's bad for biology, that it might mean the surface isn't communicating with the underlying ocean. Now we see evidence that even though the ice shell is thick, it can mix vigorously. That could make Europa and its ocean more habitable. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:30 Eastern Time. Quick note. The scientists focus on Galileo, spacecraft images of two roughly circular bumpy features on Europa's surface called chaos terrains, based on similar processes seen here on Earth, on ice shelves and under glaciers overlaying volcanoes. The researchers developed a 4-step model to explain how the features form on Europa. It resolves several conflicting observations, some of which seemed to suggest that the ice shell is thick and others that it is thin. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:32 Eastern Time. Quick note. The scientists have good reason to believe their model is correct based on observations of Europa from a Galileo spacecraft and Earth. Still, because the infrared lakes are several kilometers below the surface, the only true confirmation of their presence would come from a future spacecraft mission designed to probe the ice shell. Such a mission was rated as the second highest priority flagship mission by the National Research Council's recent Planetary Science Decadal Survey and is currently being studied by NASA. On-Earth radar instruments are used to image similar features within the ice and are among the instruments being considered for a future Europa mission. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:33 Eastern Time. Quick note. This new understanding of processes on Europa would not have been possible without the foundation of the last 20 years of observations over Earth's ice sheet and floating ice shelves. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. This Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 11:36 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Origins of Antarctica ice-covered mountains unraveled. Science Daily, November 16, 2011. Buried below more than a mile of ice, Antarctica's Gamburtsev mountains have baffled scientists since their discovery in 1958. How did the mountains get there, and what role did they play in the spread of glaciers over the continent 30 million years ago? In the latest study on the mountains, scientists in the Journal of Nature say they have pieced together the puzzle of the origins and evolution of this mysterious mountain chain. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:41 Eastern Time. Quick note. An international team of scientists flew over Antarctica's deep interior in 2008-2009 with ice-penetrating radar gravity meters and magnetometers to reveal the peaks and valleys hidden below the ice. The data they gathered has provided insight into how the mountains arose. 1 billion years ago, before animals or plants appeared on land. Several continents collided and the oldest rocks that make up the Gambursives smashed together. From the collision, a thick crustal root formed deep beneath the mountain range. Over time, these ancient mountains were eroded, but the cold, dense root remained. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:44 Eastern Time. Quick note. Between 250 to 100 million years ago, when dinosaurs walked Earth, the supercontinent Gondwana, which included Antarctica, ripped apart, causing the old crustal root to warm. Reactivated the crustal root and East Antarctica rift, pushed land upwards again, reforming the mountains, rivers, and glaciers, carved deep valleys and raised peaks to create a spectacular landscape that resembled the European Alps. The East Antarctica ice sheet, which formed 34 million years ago, and at 10 million square kilometers cover an area the size of Canada, protected the mountains from erosion. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 11:43 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The study also resolves an apparent contradiction. How could such ancient mountains have retained their tall, jagged, and youthful peaks? We are accustomed to thinking that mountain building relates to a single tectonic event, rather than sequences of events. The lesson we learned about multiple events forming the Gambursives may inform studies of the history of other mountain belts. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:49 Eastern Time. Quick note. It was fascinating to find that the East Antarctica rift system resembles one of the geological wonders of the world, the East Africa rift system, and that it provides the missing piece of the puzzle that helps explain the Gambursive subglacial mountains. The rift system was also found to contain the largest subglacial lakes in Antarctica. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Wednesday, November 16, 2011, 23:52 Eastern Time. Quick note. The team's next goal is to drill through the ice and collect the first Gambursive rock samples. Amazingly, we have samples of the moon but none of the Gambursives. With these rock samples, we will be able to constrain when this ancient piece of crust was rejuvenated and grew to a magnificent mountain range. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 19:21 Eastern Time. Quick note. Even the cleanest wastewater contributes to more superbacteria, study finds. Science Daily, November 14, 2011. A new University of Minnesota study reveals that treated municipal wastewater, even wastewater treated by the highest quality treatment technology, can result significant quantities of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, often referred to as superbacteria, in surface waters. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 19:24 Eastern Time. Quick note. The study also suggests that standard wastewater treatment technologies probably release far greater quantities of antibiotic-resistant genes used by bacteria, but this likely goes unnoticed because background levels of bacteria are normally much higher than in the water studied in this research. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 19:30 Eastern Time. Quick note. Antibiotics are used to treat numerous bacterial infections, but the ever-increasing presence of antibiotic-resistant bacteria has raised substantial concern about the future effectiveness of antibiotics. In response, there has been increasing focus on environmental reservoirs of antibiotic resistance over the past several years. Antibiotic use in agriculture has been heavily scrutinized, while the role of treated municipal wastewater has received little attention as a reservoir of resistance. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 19:31 Eastern Time. Quick note. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria developed in the gastrointestinal tracts of people taking antibiotics. These bacteria are then shed during defecation, which is collected by the existing sewer infrastructure, and pass through a municipal wastewater treatment facility. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 19:33 Eastern Time. Quick note. The treatment facility Duluth is considered one of the best, after solids and biological matter are removed. The Duluth wastewater treatment is one of only a few in the country that filter water a third time through a mixed media filter to remove additional particles of bacteria and nutrients. Standard wastewater treatment treats water twice to remove solids and biological matter. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 19:35 Eastern Time. Quick note. This was a unique and ideal location for this study, because the exemplary wastewater treatment mixed with surprisingly pristine surface waters was very low background levels of bacteria that wouldn't mask our results. Previous studies in which treated municipal wastewater was implicated as a source of antibiotic resistance were more convoluted because multiple sources of antibiotic resistance genes existed, such as agricultural activity and industrial wastewater discharges. Good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1936 Eastern Time. Quick note. While the levels of overall bacteria were still relatively low, in the surface water samples, researchers in the University of Minnesota study found that qualities of antibiotic-resistant genes in human-specific bacteria were typically 20-fold higher at the site where treated wastewater was released in Duluth, Superior Harbor compared to nearby surface water samples. Good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1937 Eastern Time. Quick note. Current wastewater treatment removes a very large fraction of the antibiotic-resistant genes. But this study shows that wastewater treatment operations need to be carefully considered and more fully studied as an important factor in the global ecology of antibiotic resistance. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1945 Eastern Time. Quick note. Deforestation causes cooling in northern U.S. Canada. Study finds. Science Daily, November 16, 2011. The impact of deforestation on global warming varies with latitude, according to new research from a team of scientists representing 20 institutions from around the world. The surprising finding, which researchers say calls for new climate monitoring strategies, will be published in the November 17 issue of the Journal of Science. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1946 Eastern Time. Quick note. It depends where the deforestation is. It could have some cooling effects at the regional scale at higher latitudes, but there is no indication deforestation is cooling lower latitudes, and in fact may actually cause warming. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1953 Eastern Time. Quick note. Because surface station observations are made in grassy fields with biophysical properties of cleared land, they do not accurately represent the state of climate for 30% of the terrestrial surface covered by forest. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1954 Eastern Time. Quick note. Colleagues found that deforestation in the boreal region north of 45 degrees latitude results in a net cooling effect. While cutting down trees releases carbon into the atmosphere, it also increases an area's albedo, or reflection of sunlight. Surface temperatures in open, non-forested, high-latitude areas were cooler because these surfaces reflected the sun's rays, while nearby forested areas absorbed the sun's heat. At night, without albedo effect, open land continued to cool faster than forested, which forced warm, turbulent air from aloft to the ground. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1956 Eastern Time. Quick note. People are debating whether afforestation is a good idea in high latitudes. If you plant trees, you sequester carbon, which is a benefit to the climate system. At the same time, if you plant trees, you warm the landscape because trees are darker compared to other vegetation types, so they absorb solar radiation. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 1958 Eastern Time. Quick note. Findings should not be viewed as a green light to cut down forests in high latitudes. The intent is to clarify where we can see these regional effects using actual temperature measurements. Besides absorbing carbon dioxide, forest ecosystems have a number of other valuable qualities, even if at certain latitudes they may be warmer than open areas. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2001 Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers calculated that north of Minnesota, or above 45 degrees latitude, deforestation was associated with an average temperature decrease of 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. On the other hand, deforestation south of North Carolina, or below 35 degrees latitude, appeared to cause warming. Statistically insignificant cooling occurred between these two latitudes. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2004 Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers collected temperature data from a network of specialized weather stations in forests ranging from Florida to Manitoba, and compared results with nearby stations situated in open grassy areas that were used as a proxy for deforested land. The cooling effect is linear with latitude, so the farther north you go, the cooler you get with deforestation. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2005 Eastern Time. Quick note. Pristine reptile fossil holds new information about aquatic adaptations. Science Daily, November 16, 2011. Extinct animals hide their secrets well, but an exceptionally well-preserved fossil of an aquatic reptile with traces of soft tissue present is providing scientists a new window into the behavior of these ancient swimmers. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2015 Eastern Time. Quick note. The fossil was found in western Kansas and was submerged under a shallow sea at the time of the mosasaur existence. Previous analysis of mosasaur locomotion had been limited by a lack of soft tissue fossils, which was crucial for scientists to truly understand the degree of aquatic adaptation that the creature had achieved. The new findings, which include scales and skin impressions, suggest that the mosasaur was able to minimize its frictional drag in the water. Additional features suggest that it held the front of its body somewhat rigid during swimming, leading it to depend on the rear of its body and tail for propulsion. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2017 Eastern Time. Quick note. Unique insights into the biology of extinct group of marine lizards that became adapted to aquatic environments in a fashion similar to that of the preceding ichthyosaurus, fish lizards, and succeeding whales. Thus, these results may have implications for understanding how this group ultimately transformed from land dwellers to pelagic cruisers in a relatively short period of geological time. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 14, 2011, 2034 Eastern Time. Quick note. Better batteries, new technology improves both energy capacity and charge rate in rechargeable batteries. Science Daily, November 14, 2011. Imagine a cell phone battery that stayed charged for more than a week and recharged in just 15 minutes. That dream battery could be closer to reality thanks to Northwestern University research. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2035 Eastern Time. Quick note. A team of engineers has created an electrode for lithium-ion batteries, rechargeable batteries such as those found in cell phones and iPods, that allows the batteries to hold a charge up to 10 times greater than current technology. Batteries with new electrode also can charge 10 times faster than current batteries. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2038 Eastern Time. Quick note. The researchers combined two chemical engineering approaches to address two major battery limitations, energy capacity and charge rate, in one fell swoop, in addition to better batteries for cell phones and iPods. The technology could pave the way for more efficient, smaller batteries for electrical cars. The technology could be seen in the marketplace in the next 3 to 5 years. A paper describing the research is published by the Journal of Advanced Energy Materials. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2039 Eastern Time. Quick note. Even after 150 charges, which would be 1 year or more of operation, the battery is still 5 times more effective than lithium-ion batteries on the market today. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2040 Eastern Time. Quick note. Lithium-ion batteries charge through a chemical reaction in which lithium ions are sent between two ends of the battery, the anode and the cathode. As the energy in the battery is used, the lithium ions travel from the anode through electrolyte and to the cathode. As the battery is recharged, they travel in the reverse direction. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2041 Eastern Time. Quick note. With current technology, the performance of lithium-ion battery is limited in two ways. Its energy capacity, how long a battery can maintain its charge, is limited by the charge density, or how many lithium ions can be packed into the anode or cathode method. Meanwhile, a battery's charge rate, the speed at which it recharges, is limited by another factor, the speed at which the lithium ions can make their way from the electrolyte into the anode. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2044 Eastern Time. Quick note. In current rechargeable batteries, the anode, made of layer upon layer of carbon-based graphene sheets, can only accommodate one lithium atom for every 6 carbon atoms. To increase energy capacity, scientists have previously experimented with replacing the carbon with silicon, as silicon can accommodate much more lithium. 4 lithium atoms for every silicon atom. However, silicon expands and contracts dramatically in the charging process, causing fragmentation and losing its charge capacity rapidly. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2051 Eastern Time. Quick note. Currently, the speed of a battery's charge rate is hindered by the shape of the graphene sheets. They are extremely thin, just 1 carbon atom thick, but by comparison very long. During the charging process, a lithium ion must travel all the way to the outer edges of the graphene sheet before entering and coming to rest between the sheets. And because it takes so long for lithium to travel to the middle of the graphene sheet, a sort of ionic traffic jam occurs around the edges of the material. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Thursday, November 17, 2011, 2054 Eastern Time. Quick note. A research team has combined 2 techniques to combat both these problems. First, to stabilize the silicon in order to maintain maximum charge capacity. They sandwich clusters of silicon between graphene sheets. This allowed for a greater number of lithium atoms in the electrode while utilizing flexible graphene sheets to accommodate the volume changes of silicon during use. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 20:56 Eastern Time. Quick note. We have much higher energy density because of the silicon, and the sandwiching reduces the capacity loss caused by the silicon expanding and contracting. Even if the silicon cluster breaks up, the silicon won't be lost. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 20:58 Eastern Time. Quick note. Our research team used a chemical oxidation process to create mini-scale holes 10 to 20 nanometers in the graphene sheets, termed in-plane defects, so the lithium ions would have a shortcut into the anode and be stored there by a reaction with silicon. This reduced the time it takes the battery to recharge by up to 10 times. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 20:59 Eastern Time. Quick note. This research was all focused on the anode. Next, the researchers will begin studying changes in the cathode that could further increase effectiveness of the batteries. They also will look into developing an electrolyte system that will allow the battery to automatically and reversibly shut off at high temperatures, a safety mechanism that could prove vital in electric car applications. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:11 Eastern Time. Quick note. Magnetic fields set stage for birth of new stars. Science Daily, November 16, 2011. Astronomers at the Max Planck Institute for Astronomy have, for the first time, measured the alignment of magnetic fields in gigantic clouds of gas and dust in a distant galaxy. Their results suggest that such magnetic fields play a key role in channeling matter to form denser clouds, and thus in setting the stage for the birth of new stars. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:16 Eastern Time. Quick note. The work is being published in the Journal of Nature. Stars and their planets are born when giant clouds of interstellar gas and dust collapse. You've probably seen the resulting stellar nurseries in beautiful astronomical images, colorful nebula, lit by the bright young stars they have brought forth. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:18 Eastern Time. Quick note. Astronomers know quite a bit about these so-called molecular clouds. They consist mainly of hydrogen molecules, unusual in the cosmos where conditions are rarely right for hydrogen atoms to bond together into molecules. And if one traces the distribution of clouds in a spiral galaxy like our own Milky Way galaxy, one finds that they are lined up along the spiral arms. But how do these clouds come into being? What makes matter congregate in regions 100 or even 1,000 times more dense than the surrounding interstellar gas? And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:22 Eastern Time. Quick note. One candidate mechanism involves the galaxy's magnetic fields. Everyone who has seen a magnet act on iron filings in the classic classroom experiment knows that magnetic fields can be used to impose order. Some researchers have argued that something similar goes on in the case of molecular clouds, that galaxies' magnetic fields guide and direct the condensation of interstellar matter to form denser clouds and facilitate their further collapse. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:24 Eastern Time. Quick note. Some astronomers see this as the key mechanism enabling star formation. Others contend that the cloud matter's gravitational attraction and turbulent motion of gas within the cloud are so strong as to cancel any influence of an outside magnetic field. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:36 Eastern Time. Quick note. If we were to restrict attention to our own galaxy, it would be difficult to find out who is right. We would need to see our galaxy disk from above to make the appropriate measurements. In reality, our solar system sits within the galactic disk. That is why Hua, Bea, Lai, and Thomas Henning from the Max Planck Institute for Astronomy chose a different target, the triangular galaxy 3 million light-years from Earth, and also known as M33, which is orientated in just the right way. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:38 Eastern Time. Quick note. Using a telescope known as the Submillimeter Array, SMA, which is located at Mauna Kea Observatory of Mauna Kea Island, Henning measured specific properties of radiation received from different regions of the galaxy which are correlated with the orientation of these regions' magnetic fields. They found that the magnetic fields associated with the galaxy's 6 most massive giant molecular clouds were orderly and well aligned with the galaxy's spiral arms. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:40 Eastern Time. Quick note. If turbulence played a more important role in these clouds than the ordering influence of the galaxy's magnetic field, the magnetic field associated with the cloud would be random and disordered. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 21:41 Eastern Time. Quick note. Observations are a strong indication that magnetic fields indeed play an important role when it comes to the formation of dense molecular clouds, and to setting the stage for the birth of stars and planetary systems like our own. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:12 Eastern Time. Quick note. Massive volcanoes meteorite impacts delivered 1-2 death punch to dinosaurs. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. A cosmic 1-2 punch of colossal volcanic eruptions and meteorite strikes likely caused the mass extinction events at the end of the Cretaceous period that is famous for killing the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, according to two Princeton University reports that reject the prevailing theory that the extinction was caused by a single large meteorite. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:15 Eastern Time. Quick note. Princeton-led researchers found that a trail of dead plankton spanning 500,000 years provides a timeline that links the mass extinction to large-scale eruptions of a Deccan trap, a primeval volcanic range in western India that was once 3 times larger than France. A second Princeton-based group uncovered traces of a meteorite close to the Deccan traps that may have been one of the series to strike Earth around the time of the mass extinction, possibly wiping out the few species that remained after thousands of years of volcanic activity. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:20 Eastern Time. Quick note. Journal of the Geological Society of India that marine sediments from Deccan lava flows show that the population of plankton species widely used to gauge the fallout of prehistoric catastrophes plummeted nearly 100% in the thousands of years leading up to the mass extinction. This eradication occurred in sync with the largest eruption phase of the Deccan traps, the second of 3 when the volcanoes pumped the atmosphere full of climate-altering carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. The researchers report the less severe third phase of Deccan activity kept Earth nearly uninhabitable for the next 500,000 years. The researchers report a substantially weaker first phase occurred roughly 2.5 million years before the second phase eruptions. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:25 Eastern Time. Quick note. Princeton University researchers found that massive prolonged eruptions of the Deccan traps in India gradually eliminated species and resulted in the Cretaceous Tertiary mass extinction that killed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Marine sediment trapped between Deccan lava flows revealed that a species known as planktonic foraminifera, widely used to gauge the severity of prehistoric disasters, succumbed to lava megaflows and volcanic-induced environmental stress such as acid rain and drastic climate changes. As conditions on Earth worsened, large varied species left were eliminated. The no more than 7 or 8 smaller species that remained dwarf. Further end. Good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:27 Eastern Time. Quick note. Another group based on Keller's lab found evidence in Indian sediment of a meteorite strike from the time of the mass extinction that would have been sufficient to finish off the few but weakened species that survived the Deccan eruptions, according to a report in the Journal of Earth and Planetary Science Letters, EPSL, in October. The same sediment located in the Meghalaya, India, more than 600 miles east of the Deccan traps, portrayed Earth during this period as a harsh environment of acid rain and erratic global temperatures. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:28 Eastern Time. Quick note. Taken together, Princeton finding could finally put to rest the theory that the mass extinction event, known as the Cretaceous Tertiary, or KT, for the periods and straddles, was triggered solely by a large meteorite impact which occurred around the time of the second phase Deccan eruptions. Is thought to have been 2 million times more powerful than a hydrogen bomb and generated an enormous dust cloud and gases that radically altered the climate. Has long held that the impact was not catastrophic enough to cause the KT mass extinction. The newest work from her lab, however, shows that the largest Deccan eruptions were. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:32 Eastern Time. Quick note. We demonstrate a clear cause and effect relationship that these massive volcanic eruptions were far more destructive than previously thought, and could have caused the KT mass extinction even without the addition of large meteorite impacts. But given the environmental instability caused by the massive Deccan eruptions, an impact could easily have killed off the few survivor species at the end of the Cretaceous. it would have been a double whammy. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:39 Eastern Time. Quick note. The Princeton papers are based on a closer examination of Deakin volcanism and its aftermath than has been conducted previously. As such, the researchers' impressive analysis confirms the timing of the Deakin eruptions and environmental fallout reported in recent years by various research teams, including his own. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:40 Eastern Time. Quick note. Deakin volcanism occurred in 3 phases, the second and largest of which coincides with the Cretaceous-Tertiary massive extinction. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:43 Eastern Time. Quick note. The significance of this recent work is that the analysis was conducted in important sections near the volcanic action. They provide support for the idea that carbon and sulfur dioxide emissions were the principal agents of environmental change and stress, and conducted that the characteristics of the second phase eruptions were such that it could alone have caused the mass extinction. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 22:59 Eastern Time. Quick note. In addition, the approach the teams used could prove valuable to understanding the part volcanoes played other extinction events in Earth's history. Exceptional massive volcanism, I am now quite sure, is the general cause of mass extinctions. But in order to be considered as proven and quantitatively explained, we need the kind of extensive, detailed work described by these teams to be conducted for all other extinctions. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:01 Eastern Time. Quick note. Researchers who announced in 2003 that a sediment core from the Chicxulub crater revealed that the impact predated the mass extinction event by about 300,000 years. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:05 Eastern Time. Quick note. Suggesting that the Chicxulub meteorite was instead one of the several meteorite strikes that occurred in the several 100,000 years leading up to the mass extinction event. They concluded that while destructive, the Chicxulub impact was not powerful enough to have caused widespread annihilation. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:08 Eastern Time. Quick note. Until recently, the theory was in question because the eruptions were thought to have been stretched out over a period of more than 1 million years, leaving plenty of time for Earth to recover between eruptions. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:10 Eastern Time. Quick note. To narrow the time of the largest eruptions to a few 100,000 years, at the end of the Cretaceous, known as the Deakin Phase 2, this period accounted for 80% of the total volcanism. The first and weakest phase of activity occurred about 67.5 million years ago. The third and final eruption phase began about 300,000 years after the KT mass extinction. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:35 Eastern Time. Quick note. In 2008, Keller and her team reported in EPSL the first direct link that the KT extinctions coincided with the end of the second phase and Deakin eruptions. She explained that the marine sediments preserved between lava flows from the second and third phase eruptions contained evidence of KT boundary, a thin worldwide geological layer that marks the mass extinction event. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:37 Eastern Time. Quick note. Deakin volcanism behind the mass extinction, so to say, the plankton. The work published November 1st by the Geological Society of India builds on Keller's 2008 paper in EPSL. She and her co-authors examined cores from Deakin lava flows near Rajamundry and the basin, the remnant of the ancient sea on the Bay of Bengal coast, and found that the lava flows from the second and third Deakin phases are separated by marine sediments. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:39 Eastern Time. Quick note. The team examined the basin sediment layers to determine the size and number of the species known as planktonic foraminifera that remain following each eruption phase. These plankton are single-celled microorganisms ranging in size from the point of a needle to a pinhead that are highly sensitive to changes in oxygen, salinity temperatures, and nutrients. Their sensitivity to environmental changes and their near extinction at the end of the Cretaceous makes the species key to determining the time span, pace, and severity of the mass extinction. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:42 Eastern Time. Quick note. After studying microplankton remains in sediment from below, between and above the second phase lava flows, The researchers observed that the number of living species dropped 50% at the onset of eruptions. The species count plunged by another 50% after the first of what would be 4 lava megaflows. No more than 7 to 8 of the species that were most tolerant to environmental changes survived after the first megaflow, and no recovery occurred between subsequent megaflows. By the end of the 4th megaflow, the mass extinction was complete, the researchers wrote. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:44 Eastern Time. Quick note. The vast amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide poured into the atmosphere by the end of the second volcanic phase, estimated to be 30 times more than the levels produced by the Chicxulub impact, resulted in, among other crises, heavy acid rain, acidic oceans, and global temperatures that swung between scorching and frigid, the researchers report. The third eruption phase prolonged these conditions. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:45 Eastern Time. Quick note. Thus, the number of species evolving remained low. An existing species dwarfed during the 500,000-year period after the mass extinction, although no significant extinctions occurred again. Keller and her co-authors found new larger marine species did not appear until after the third phase, when Deakin eruptions went dormant, suggesting that life began to recover as the atmosphere became less poisonous. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:48 Eastern Time. Quick note. In my work, I had always observed evidence of marked changes in species abundance with gradually higher levels of stress and extinction during the last several 100,000 years, rather than one single instantaneous annihilation, Keller said. For lack of better evidence, scientists had interpreted this steady decline as a result of climate and sea level changes. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 23:52 Eastern Time. Quick note. Analysis of the Meghalaya sediment revealed an inhospitable planet rife with high humidity, severe storms, and massive blooms of the plankton species Gumbellatria cretacea, a disaster opportunist that flourished and devastated environments when few other species survived. And good evening, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Thursday, November 17, 2011, 000 Eastern Time. Quick note. At the same time, the team detected large amounts of iridium, an element typically associated with meteorite impacts. Iridium is rare on Earth, yet is found in high concentrations in the KT boundary, a phenomenon known as the iridium anomaly. Remnants of iridium at the KT boundary in Meghalaya coincided with the global KT boundary iridium anomaly. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Friday, November 18, 2011, 004 Eastern Time. Quick note. New evidence of the meteorite strike at Meghalaya that coincides with the KT mass extinction supports the theory Keller proffered in 2003 that multiple meteorites struck Earth around the time of the Deakin eruptions, adding to the volcano-fueled misery of the mass extinction era. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Friday, November 18, 2011, 006 Eastern Time. Quick note. Our data suggests that the mass extinction of the dinosaurs and other species was caused by the harsh conditions resulting from massive Deakin eruptions and the coincidence of multiple meteorites. In light of this new evidence, this single impact story seems more like an article of faith at this point. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. World's lightest material is a metal 100 times lighter than styrofoam. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. A team of researchers from UC, HRL Laboratories, and the California Institute of Technology have developed the world's lightest material, with a density of 0.9 mg divided by cc, about 100 times lighter than styrofoam. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:38 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Their findings appear in the November 18 issue of Science. The new material redefines the limits of lightweight materials because of its unique microlattice. Cellular architecture, the researchers were able to make a material that consists of 99.99% air by designing the 0.01% solid at the nanometer, micron, and millimeter scales. The trick is to fabricate a lattice of interconnected hollow tubes with a wall thickness of 1,000 times thinner than a human hair. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Friday, November 18, 2011. The materials architecture allows unprecedented mechanical behavior for a metal, including complete recovery from compression exceeding 50% strain and extraordinary high energy absorption. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:49 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, galaxies are the ultimate recyclers, NASA Hubble confirms. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. Galaxies learn to go green early in the history of the universe. continuously recycling immense volumes of hydrogen gas and heavy elements to build successive generations of stars, stretching over billions of years. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:50 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The ongoing recycling keeps galaxies from emptying their fuel tanks and therefore stretches out their star-forming approach to over 10 billion years. However, galaxies that ignite a rapid firestorm of star birth can blow away their remaining fuel, essentially turning off further star birth activity. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:54 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This conclusion is based on a series of Hubble Space Telescope observations that fixed the special capabilities of its comparatively new cosmic origin spectrograph, COS, to detect otherwise invisible mass in the halo of our Milky Way, and a sample of more than 40 other galaxies. Data from large ground-based telescopes in Hawaii, Arizona, and Chile also contributed to the studies by measuring the properties of the galaxies. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. This invisible mass is made up of normal matter, hydrogen, helium, and heavier elements such as carbon and oxygen, nitrogen, and neon, as opposed to dark matter, and it is an unknown exotic particle pervading space. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:57 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The key findings: the color and shape of a galaxy is largely controlled by gas flowing through an extended halo around it. All modern simulations of galaxy formation find that they cannot explain the observed properties of galaxies without modeling the complex accretion processes by which galaxies acquire gas and then later expel it after processing by stars. The three studies investigated different aspects of the gas recycling phenomenon. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 1:58 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Our results confirm a theoretical suspicion that galaxies expel and can recycle their gas, but they also present a fresh challenge to theoretical models to understand these gas flows and integrate them with the overall picture of galaxy formation. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 2:06 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The team used COS observations of distant stars to demonstrate that a large mass of clouds is falling through the giant corona halo of our Milky Way, fueling its ongoing star formation. These clouds of ionized hydrogen reside within 20,000 light-years of the Milky Way disk and contain enough material to make 100 million suns. Some of the gas is recycled material that is continually being replenished by star formation and the explosive energy of nova and supernova, which kicks chemically enriched gas back into the halo. The remainder is gas being accreted for the first time. The infalling gas from the vast reservoir fuels the Milky Way with the equivalent of about a solar mass per year, which is comparable to the rate at which our galaxy makes stars. At this rate, the Milky Way will continue making stars for another billion years by recycling gas into the halo and back onto the galaxy. We now know where is the missing fuel for galactic star formation. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 2:32 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. One goal of the studies was to study how other galaxies like our Milky Way accrete mass for star making, but instead of widespread accretion, the team found nearly ubiquitous halos of hot gas surrounding vigorous star-forming galaxies. These galaxy halos, rich in heavy elements, extend as much as 450,000 light-years beyond the visible portions of their galactic disk. The surprise was discovering how much mass in heavy elements is far outside a galaxy. COS measured 10 million solar masses of oxygen in the galaxy's halo, which corresponds to about 1 billion solar masses of gas, as much as in the entire interstellar medium between stars and the galaxy's disk. They also found that this gas is nearly absent from galaxies that have stopped forming stars. This is evidence that widespread outflows rather than accretion determine a galaxy's fate. We didn't know how much mass was there in these gas halos because we couldn't do these observations until we had COS. This stuff is a huge component of galaxies but can't be seen in any images. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 2:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. He points out that because so much of the heavy elements has been ejected into the halos instead of sticking around in the galaxies, the formation of planets, life, and other things requiring heavy elements could have been delayed in these galaxies. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:14 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The COS data also demonstrate that those galaxies forming stars at very rapid rate, perhaps 100 solar masses per year, can drive 2 million degree gas very far out into intergalactic space at speeds of up to 2 million miles per hour. That's fast enough for the gas to escape forever and never refuel the parent galaxy. While hot plasma winds from galaxies have been known for some time, The new COS observations reveal that hot outflows extend to much greater distances than previously thought and can carry a tremendous amount of mass out of a galaxy. Some of the hot gas is moving more slowly and could eventually be recycled. The Hubble observations show how gas-rich star-forming spiral galaxies can evolve to QS and elliptical galaxies that no longer have star formation. So not only have we found that star-forming galaxies are pervasively surrounded by large halos of hot gas, we have also observed that hot gas is transit. We have caught the stuff in the process of moving out of a galaxy and into intergalactic space. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:18 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the light emitted by this hot plasma is invisible, so the researchers use COS to detect the presence of the gas by the way it absorbs certain colors of light from background quasars. The brightest objects in the universe, quasars, are the brilliant cores of active galaxies that contain rapidly accreting supermassive black holes. The quasars serve as distant lighthouse beacons that shine through the gas-rich fog of hot plasma encircling galaxies. At ultraviolet wavelength, COS is sensitive to absorption from many ionized heavy elements such as nitrogen, oxygen, and neon. COS highly sensitivity allows many galaxies that happen to lie in front of much more distant quasars to be studied. The ionized heavy elements serve as proxies for estimating how much mass is in a galaxy's halo. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: new class of anti-malaria compounds discovered. Science Daily, November 17, 2011. An international team led by scientists from the Genomics Institute of the Research Foundation, GNF, and Scripps Research Institute has discovered a family of chemical compounds that could lead to a new generation of anti-malaria drugs capable of not only alleviating symptoms but also preventing the deadly disease. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: most anti-malaria drugs are only effective during the blood stage, and those that do work in the liver have notable side effects. However, the new class of compounds identified by the team is highly effective against the parasite in both the blood and liver. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: because the parasite blood stages are more amenable to high-throughput screening, much research has focused on that area. We are excited to have found a class of compounds that appears to target a novel gene and is highly active against the liver stage parasite in mice. This compound class provided us with a lead for the development of novel anti-malaria drugs. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:50 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: a complicated life cycle. Despite long-standing efforts to control malaria globally, the disease remains endemic in many parts of the world. According to the World Health Organization, malaria affected about 225 million people in 2009 and killed nearly 800,000. The disease, which tends to strike the poorest and most vulnerable populations in Asia, Africa, and the Americas, is caused by plasmodium parasites transmitted through the bites of infected mosquitoes. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: the plasmodium parasite has a complicated life cycle in two hosts, mosquitoes and humans or other vertebrae. When a malaria-infected mosquito feeds on a person, the parasite enters the human body. Within 30 minutes, the parasite has infected liver cells, where it develops for about 8 days, without causing noticeable symptoms. In some cases, it can even go into hiding in the liver and persist for several months to years. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 3:59 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: when this period is over, however, the parasite, now in a different form, leaves the liver and enters the red blood cells, where it grows and multiplies. When the infected red blood cells eventually burst, the parasite and plasmodium toxins are released into the bloodstream, and the person feels sick. Symptoms include fever, chills, headache, and other fluke-like symptoms. In severe cases, patients can experience convulsions, coma in liver, and kidney failure, which can be fatal. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: if a mosquito bites the infected person at this point, the parasite will enter the mosquito, where it will continue the cycle by maturing into a form that can infect the next human host. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note: mining the data to find compounds to act against the parasite in more than one stage of its life cycle. The team screened thousands of candidates that were already known to act against malaria parasites in the blood. Only 15% looked as if they might also work in the liver, a strong indication that a lot of compounds that are active against blood stages probably aren't going to do anything about eliminating malaria. And Good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:28 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The group then identified the strongest candidates for drug development by mining the data for groups of related compounds that all showed activity in the liver. In the end, they settled on a cluster related to the chemical imidazole piperazine. When we analyzed all this data, we saw the multiple members of this imidazole piperazine family were active in blood and liver stages. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It is Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:29 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The imidazole piperazine family of compounds was especially attractive because it was chemically unrelated to existing anti-malaria drugs, and therefore less likely to run into problems with existing resistance. I wouldn't want to base a multi-million-dollar clinical trial on compounds for which there may be pre-existing resistance. Ultimately, we want to have something that will be effective in 10 years. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. The group used an automated system of their own design to see how these new compounds fared against malaria parasites incubated in the liver cells in the lab. An imaging apparatus took multiple images of each collection of cells over time, and a computer script analyzed those images to see how well the various compounds inhibited the growth of the parasites. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:33 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. In the end, the team was able to develop compounds that could be taken orally and would stay in the blood long enough to be a viable candidate for drug development. When it was given to mice, the compound provided complete protection against the parasite in the liver and worked better in the blood than some commercially available drugs. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. Spurring drug discovery to better understand how the compound works. The team exposed successive generations of infected mosquitoes to low levels of the compound to produce resistant strains of parasites. They then sequenced the parasites' whole genomes and looked for genetic changes. Every resistant strain we looked at had a mutation in the same gene. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. It's Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. By offering a target for other new anti-malaria drugs that can act in both the liver and the blood, that gene will provide other researchers fresh ammunition in the fight to eradicate the disease. So too will the decision by the team to make all of their data available online. And good morning, it's Dr. Will, CBMD, PhD. This Friday, November 18, 2011, 4:38 a.m. Eastern Time. Quick note. We have been making all of our data available to the community to spur drug development. The data on all of the compounds that were tested will eventually be released, and this will allow people at universities and research institutions around the world to mine this data and to use it to guide their own drug discovery efforts. And